So for the past week now, I've been kind of looking at, new series to read and check out for myself because as you all know, when an anime season comes to an end, there is a huge gap in between shifting over into the next season. For instance, Summer Anime 2021. And so with that gap, I decided to go out of my way and look into some of the recommendations people have given me to, let's say, Lookism, to also Sweet Home, and countless other series I still need to dive into and check out for myself. But there was one series that really stood out to me, a series that actually caught my eye, especially with the title, because I think everybody knows how big of a fan I am of the villains versus heroes type story. And the name of this series is called Villain to Kill, and the picture of the series is what really caught my eye, because I really love the art style. That is the big thing that really kind of drew me into actually wanting to read this in the first place. Before I even read the synopsis, before I even really sat down and read the chapters that are currently out, I decided to just look at the art. I looked at the art and I was like, whoa, this looks good. This is the type of stuff I like. It's really nicely detailed, so I'm probably gonna like it. So I sat down and I read Villain to Kill. Currently, there is only 4 chapters out at this time. That's not including the prologue, which is chapter 0. Now, there is obviously chapters past chapter 4 if you decide to go into the WEBTOON app and actually purchase the individual chapters with coins. But if you don't want to do that and you just want to strictly just stick to reading the chapters currently out for the public, then there's only technically 5 chapters, and that's what I've currently read thus far, and I like what I have read so far. And so let's dive into it. What separates this series outside of all the other hero versus villain type stories, and why would this be something that would interest you? So once again, as you all know, I love this type of genre of stuff. I love heroes versus villains. I mean, I talk about My Hero Academia all the time. It's a really good series I talk about on this channel continuously. It's very clear I do have a somewhat of a bias when it does come to these type of stories, but the reason why I do is because they're very fascinating. They lead to a lot of interesting development to seeing how far a character can be pushed with their sense of justice. For instance, can they maintain that grip of justice, or will they kind of fall down and eventually lose their way and become something, let's say, like the Punisher, which is a story I really love in comics. And so that's kind of why I took an interest in this, because Villain to Kill is about a hero turned villain. Yeah, so I think anyone that hears that's probably gonna get a little bit more interested or invest in wanting to know what it's about, because when you hear a hero fall from grace, it's like, what happened? Why did that hero fall? Did his family get wiped out and he's seeking vengeance? Did, he just had one bad day, something just really bad happened to him, and eventually he became a monster? Or was it inevitable? Did he have these things that he was hiding behind, his, behind the scenes, behind a mask, and eventually he revealed his true colors to actually be a villain? There's a lot of different directions that storytelling could go when it comes to a hero turning into a villain. But this story does it in a very different way. It kind of mixes some of my favorite types of series into one. It mixes, like I said, the hero versus villain type story, but also with the reincarnated type story. So basically, to kind of explain this, our main character was the top of the heroes. For instance, he was what was designated called as a psyker. In this world, that's what heroes are called. They're on the side of good. And basically, he was someone that was S-class. He was able to basically do high-level assignments. He was top of, all the other heroes. Basically, not maybe the number 1, but he was definitely top of the heroes. And the main thing is that he had this sense of justice. He was a hot-tempered individual, but he had a sense of justice where he wanted to take out the villains and make the world a better place. And we get some brief details about him that, he obviously is constantly butting heads with those in the hero division that are a part of the organization, because sometimes he might go a little bit too far with his sense of justice. And the reason for this is because in the first chapter, it shows that he might have used excessive force against the villains that he was fighting in the bank robbery, which brings up a whole discussion, makes you wonder, like, what's really going on there? I mean, is he necessarily fully on a good person, or is he unethical, or was he, right to do what he did? There's a lot of things that, you can really question from the first chapter, but it goes a little bit further. You kind of find out a little bit more about his background. Apparently, he was an orphan of some kind. We don't really know the reasons to why, and there was this dude, Jeff, that kind of took care of him and was kind of like a foster father figure to him, and helped him kind of have a really better childhood than he did. did, even though he was in an orphanage. And basically, he just looked up to this guy. And as the chapter progresses, you see this very same foster father die before our MC. And obviously you can see, like, okay, is this where he becomes a villain? Is this why he becomes hero to villain? Yes and no. Let me continue on. So after that event happens, he chases down the murderer of Jeff, his foster father, and he discovers that the person that actually did it was a part of the very organization that he works for, the Hero Association. For instance, Lamprey, he basically discovers that apparently Jeff was a traitor, someone that killed another psyker. He wasn't a good person by any means. But then, obviously, our MC, he doesn't believe that. He's like, throughout his entire career, this entire time of being a psyker and all that, and saving the day, he's never once killed anyone, never killed a villain or anything. He has been an honest to good person. So it's like, I don't believe you. And eventually, you know, negotiation breaks down, and he starts to get shot at, and he dies. We see him fall into the ocean, and he dies. And then we do a transition scene over to a boy that's getting his head shoved into a toilet, and he realizes that he is in an entirely new body. Same world, but in a new body. Now, this is what's interesting about it, is because the boy that he now is in the body, apparently he died. So just like how our MC died, the boy that was actually being drowned in the toilet, he died as well from bullies. And so he technically possessed a body that lost its soul that was in it once before. Which already just brings up like, oh, whoa, that's a huge discussion, a big bombshell to talk about. But he goes a lot further. Come to find out that this boy, apparently, before his life was cut short, he actually could have been one of the greatest villains. He would have potentially caused the apocalypse. Now, we don't really know exactly what this fully means. It is yet to really be explained. When you hear the word apocalypse, all I can think of in my head is something like Ragnarok from Norse mythology. That's what comes to my head when I think of apocalypse. So, when I hear that, I'm just like, okay, so, you know, the boy had a lot of potential to be something incredibly evil, and it makes you wonder, like, okay, why? Why is this? Like, you know, he seems like an innocent boy. He was just getting bullied. Is it because he was getting bullied is why he would have became that? There was a lot of things to really question thanks to the way the chapters were presenting the stuff. And then you kind of find out that, you know, villains actually cannot control themselves. Now, this is what really got me interested. Now, this is how hero turn villain, what it comes into. Basically, our main character, which, once again, he was a hero, now in the body of a villain, he now has these uncontrollable urges to do damaging things to others. For instance, anger, etc., rage, and all that. And it's fascinating because it's like, you gotta find out that villains within this world, they can't control themselves. Basically, they are afflicted with an illness to where their desires, their emotions just go rampant, and they can't stop themselves. So, deep down, all the villains that we see throughout this series going forward actually might have been really good individuals, very similar to the boy that had his life cut short, and he, you know, he got controlled by his desires, his emotions, and you know, that's what happened to him. So it's just like, okay, so we're getting to see from the perspective of villains, and not just the typical side of villains. We're getting to see that these villains can't really help themselves. And the way society is dealing with them is just trying to get rid of them entirely, throw them away, lock them up, and whatever, and not really trying to help them out with the problems that they're currently facing. So, like I said, Villain to Kill, really, really interesting. I love what I read so far, and like, if that synopsis, that brief synopsis does not get you interested, I don't know what else can. It's a really, really, really good first 4-chapter read. And here's another thing too. Like I said, there's a lot of discussion that can happen around the whole thing about the boy and how he died and now our main character's possessing him. For all we know, the boy might still be around. It could be kind of like, you know, the boy eventually might resurface and his soul's still inhabiting that body, which could have like two souls in one body constantly competing for control, villain and hero fighting each other for the mental control. There's a lot of directions that Villain to Kill can go down, and so there's a lot of potential. I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on this series, definitely keeping my eye on what is next for it, because so far, good premise, good characters, good artwork. What more could I really ask for? So before I wrap up this video, I just want to say I'm just so happy and so thankful to all of you out there right now, because it's like, thanks to all of you guys continuously giving me recommendations either on YouTube or on social media, I have found countless new series that I've been reading continuously, to like this series, Villain to Kill, to, you know, Hero Killer, to Omniscient Reader, to Lore Olympus, to, you know, Jungle Juice, which I'm kind of checking out now, to, you know, other things. It's really nice, and I really want to dive into so much more. There's so many things to really dive into, and I'm just gonna ask once again, give me some recommendations. If any of you have any more recommendations for different series I should dive into, let me know in the comments below. I am super curious. But with that, guys, thank you so much. If you're wanting to read the series, I will link it in the description and in the comment section. So if you're interested, click on that link. It does help me out as well if you do click on the link, thanks to me being a WEBTOON ambassador. So if you want to help out, like I said, click on the link in the description or in the comment section on my pinned comment. But with that, guys, be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.